Hello, hello, hello. My name is Hollis Bailey. It's December inside of the Consciousness Collective. This is our final workshop of the year. This will complete a full 12-month cycle since this portal began. Thank you so much to everyone who has been around since the beginning, which is most of you. Of course, this will be recorded and available for any future portal members and Consciousness Collective visitors. But it's been such a journey. The last 2 years have been such a journey. I feel like 2020 was the year that just started to really shake us up, right? And shake all the traumas to the surface and start to bring up all of our deepest, darkest fears and shadows, and just really started to break essentially the foundation that we all once stood on. For some of this happened beforehand. Some of us had experience in this already, but some of us didn't. And this year, 2021, a year ago, I was planning on launching this portal. And I knew that this was going to be a time for starting to collect what was coming up in 2020, embrace ourselves essentially for more stuff to come up, but learn how to work with that in a constructive way and integrate it. So the theme of this month is integration. And what I really want to start off with by saying is that integration is happening all the time. It's not just this one month or this one thing we do one time. There are processes, there are different systems that can be applied to certain situations. For example, psychedelic journeys. There can be more of a system that can be followed depending on what comes up for you in that journey, to extract all of the wisdom or the majority of the wisdom out of that experience. So there are times when systems can be applied, but really integration is ongoing. And I'm totally winging this workshop, by the way. I have written a few notes and I have my script out that I wrote for the course I'm writing on psychedelic journeys on integration. But what I decided to do this time was just wing it, because I feel like I know so much about this. I have so much to share. And I think you will as well once you apply some of the tools that I'm going to teach you. And the one and only real tool that we need for integration is just to know that it takes pausing. It takes stopping. It takes letting ourselves catch up to ourselves, or letting the work that we've done, the experience that we've gone through, to be contemplated and looked over, and then we choose how to move forward based on the lessons we've learned. So it's simple, it's super simple integration, but yet it's difficult sometimes, and I'll get into the reasons why. But essentially, sometimes it's not easy to implement change, and sometimes we don't even want to, and sometimes there's so much resistance inside of us and there's more work to be done that it just takes time to be able to really create different actions and different responses to things and different ways of being in order to evolve and create that new identity that we're doing on this path of life. But 2022 was really the year that just, started to shake us up a lot. And 2021, even though what I wanted to say is, even though this month is based on integration, you can look at all of the themes we've gone through this year and apply them as needed to your process of integration. So like I said, integration is super self-responsible. This whole path is super self-responsible. No one's going to do the work for you. So, but once you've committed, once you decide to show up and do the work, it's going to be on a case-to-case basis on as far as what you decide in order to help you integrate and implement the changes that you are in the desiring to make, in the process of making. So I was going to play a little bit of music. I need to turn my air conditioning on because I'm already starting to sweat a little bit. Where did I put my control? Well, maybe my air conditioning is just not meant to be on. So I'm going to play a little bit of music, and this is with the intention of getting us into heart coherence. So this is an integration tool. I'm going to give you a lot of tools to work with this month. It's December. It's also the end of the year. So this could not be a more perfect time to really spend as much time as you can on doing integration practices. There's going to be some journal prompts that you'll find under this video. There will be a meditation, and maybe I might add a few more meditations from YouTube that I really love. Integration, physically, let me say this, physically, in order to integrate, we must be relaxed. So just think of it, let's have the parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system conversation, right? Our body heals when we're in the parasympathetic state. That's integration. That's integration of a healthier body, of new cells that need to be created to fight off certain, bacteria and viruses, for example. That's integrating a healthier body. Same thing with our thought patterns. We can't stay turned on and in a trauma response or in an activated defensive mode if we're going to be integrating forgiveness and compassion and understanding. So we really need to first master some tools, and they're going to be different for everyone. So master your own set of tools to get you in a relaxed state. If you think of yoga, going to a yoga class, pretty much every single yoga class I've ever been to in my whole entire life, you do Shavasana at the end. Shavasana is basically staying still, laying on your back in stillness, just flat on your back, breathing, resting, relaxing. That's the integration of your practice. That's where many teachers will say, this is the most important part of your whole practice. You're reaping the benefits in that moment in terms of relaxing, resting, letting every cell in your body recalibrate, letting your muscles, do whatever they're doing on a physiological level to recover and start the, maybe rebuilding process. So, it's simple and it's not, because integration is also a process. Sometimes integration, well, not sometimes, I'm going to give you a few definitions and ways to think about integration just to put it into context and make my explanation of it as easily understandable for your mind, because I think there's a lot of ways that we could talk about this. But if you start to get it into your mindset about integration's happening all the time. We have a chance in every single moment to integrate. Being in the present moment, in the here and now, is definitely the action of integrating. Sleeping is the action of integrating. So anyway, where was I going? Okay, so I'm going to do a little sound healing for us. You can think about this as heart coherence. So we're going to get, even though this isn't live, I'm going to get in a state of heart coherence with the present moment, with this theme of integration. And I want you to do the same with me. So this is just bringing yourself into your body, bringing yourself into the present moment, inviting with the intention of becoming more whole. Perhaps even just as you listen to this workshop, you'll be able to integrate a few more pieces of the puzzle, either mentally or physically, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, that feels separate from the you that is whole right now. So whenever we're in heart coherence, we're more available to receive, we're more connected to the collective, we're more connected to our whole infinite consciousness versus just the reality that we're seeing with our five and perceiving with our five senses. So heart coherence is just this beautiful state of presence in the here and the now. I invite you to close your eyes. Take a deep breath in, setting the intention for this workshop, for this entire month, for this community, that we can openly receive the gifts of all of the labor that we've done and the self-work and the journey that we've been through this entire year, finding peace and understanding in the processes that we're in, inviting potential to really put to rest some of the processes that we've worked through that we're ready to let go of. And in a sense, that creates a more whole version of us as we integrate those parts that we've healed, the lessons that we've learned, and I invite all higher beings to come in and support this teaching, this community, this collective, this portal with so much love and so much light and so much courage. No matter where you are on your path, may you find peace and love and courage, harmony and balance, worthiness. This frequency, I send it out into the universe, send it to each and every one of you, so that we may be connected, reminded, if even for a split second, that we are one. That we are of the same consciousness, of the same infinite source. The more personal integration that we do in our lives, we also do for the collective. We do for each other. In this dimension, in this reality, we really only have the ability to work on ourselves. And the more we turn our attention and our focus inward, the more courage and motivation and inspiration we can apply to the way that we live our lives when we become aware of the things that are ready to be healed and the limiting beliefs that are ready to be shed. becoming aware of the relationships that are no longer serving us. When we become aware of these things and then take action forward in service of creating more space for ourselves to do the work we came here to do, we really are serving every single other living being on this planet by becoming more integrated and whole. Staying in that expanded, open heart space. Calling on the Earth Star, Earth Chakra, the Divine Mother, the energy of the Divine Mother with this frequency, to let her presence be known throughout this month as we work through the things that come up for us in contemplation and our process of integration. Through these frequencies as a reminder that we always have this one stable, beautiful presence in our lives, and that's our Great Mother, Mother Earth. So may you always remember that you can connect with her. Maybe it takes just your feet on the ground, and sometimes it takes throwing yourself on her body, chest to chest, sinking into her, reminding yourself that you're here, you're in this body, you came here for a reason. You can do this, you can get through anything that comes up in your life. She will always be there for you. And now calling on the angelic beings, all of our guides, all of our ancestors who passed. Uniting in this calmness, this knowingness, this divine plan, bringing this energy, support, guidance from above into your body right now. Accepting on some level, preferably in the body, beyond the mind, that your presence here is so unique and so special. And your purpose here, whether you feel mentally connected to it or not, or whether you're proud of it or not, know that you came here for a reason. You came here to experience the illusion of separation, went through traumas, went through pain and suffering. You still may be in that process. I just want you to invite in the wisdom that you chose this. Your soul chose this path. Your soul chose this journey. Integration is very much a process of soul retrieval, of going and rescuing these parts of our consciousness that broke off or were frozen in time. We did that because we wanted to have the experience of pain and hardship so that we could go back and have the experience of becoming whole again. Thank you, light beings, for your presence. Thank you, Mother Earth, for your presence. Thank you to everyone who's listening to this. Doesn't matter when and where, we're all here together, here and now. Home. So I can guarantee that if you allowed yourself to relax into the present moment, something somewhere in your consciousness was just integrated. So I do want to talk about the concepts and the definitions that I wrote down and a couple of the definitions that I have of integration. Like I said, to give you context, and because sometimes we can have major breakthroughs with just simple perception shifts in our psyche. But the main thing I want you to understand and take away is that integration isn't, like I said, something we do and then we end or complete it or finish it. It's an ongoing process. It's the whole like the meta view is like, we came here to separate from oneness, to have the experience, like I said, of separation, to go through, we set ourselves up for our conditioning, society's conditioning, familiar conditioning, just everything we experienced when we made it here in this body. We came here to experience that so that we would have all of these frozen parts of us in the past, the traumatized parts, the parts that we chose to throw away even along the path, so that when we get to the point of waking up, of remembering why we came here, part of it's going back and rescuing those parts, doing some soul retrieval, doing trauma work. And when we go back and rescue those parts, when we heal the traumas, when we go and, go into plant medicine ceremonies, for example, and heal past life trauma and do karma work and heal relationships, we're integrating, we're bringing those pieces back that we we're wounded, we're damaged, we're broken, we're not a part of our whole as it is now. And when we bring those parts back, when we love them, when we accept them, invite them back into our being now, that's when we integrate more of our soul, more of our consciousness, and become whole. So that's a basic definition. That's the premise of this whole conversation. So I love this this process. This is kind of the whole healing process, but it's the integration process too. Waking up, cleaning up, and showing up. So waking up is, we first need to become aware of our wounds, of our hurting. You guys, give me just a moment. I need to go get the AC control because it's kind of hot in here. Give me just a second. Yeah, it's right there. And you guys get to see that I'm wearing my super comfy camo leggings. Okay. So waking up is becoming aware. And we've become aware of a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. So that's sometimes why we avoid the integration piece. We just keep becoming aware and more aware and more aware of these things. I can tell you, I skipped the integration piece for many years, pretty much my whole 20s. I was becoming very aware of, where my wounding came from, for example, why I ended up becoming a drug addict, why I ended up doing all of these behaviors that were surprising to me, even at the time, and especially afterwards as I started to find the healing path. But what happened was when I figured it out mentally, I didn't really have the tools to integrate it. I kind of stayed in this, I saw, for example, where I got the conditioning, and then I just continued to blame my parents for years and years and years because I just kept waking up. I just kept wanting to wake up to new information. I kept wanting to, find more people to blame, essentially. And so the waking up part is great. Becoming aware of things is awesome. But it's not where we get to stop. We have to do the cleaning up and we have to do the showing up. And that's the real juice of the integration piece. So we have to have the awareness in order to be able to integrate and have inspiration to make a change, right? So we have to become aware of what is causing us to do a certain behavior or why we continue to attract that certain relationship, becoming aware of our patterns. So awareness is great. Waking up is great. But we have to do the cleaning up and showing up to really be able to heal and not stay in the victim mentality, to not stay in a traumatized state, to not stay as a powerless individual, to not stay as the deeply traumatized being if we went through a lot of trauma. So the cleaning up is where most of us are right now, if you're here. A lot of people haven't made it to the cleaning up part, and that's okay. We'll be the way showers for them. But the cleaning up part it starts out often, and the journal exercises are going to help you do this. And I'll get into more of, so I did a really awesome reading, oracle card reading for the how for all of us this month. This was a collective reading, and it just came to me like, this is, there's so many ways to talk about this, but I was like, what's the most relevant right here, right now for all of us? Because sometimes integration can mean more being in action, and sometimes it can mean more like rest and recovery. And that's what this reading is telling me more about for all of us this month. But anyway, the cleaning up part. So that's when we start to, contemplate the awareness and dig deeper into like what patterns are underneath this awareness of what patterns are there? What core belief systems are there? What emotions are we resisting? So this cleaning up part, this is multi-leveled, and showing up as well. But the cleaning up is like becoming hyper aware, like becoming detailed aware of what the core wound means, like what patterns are in our lives. What do we want to change? What is our desired change and shift that we want to create? So cleaning up is kind of like starting to figure out where we can get into action, and then eventually getting into action in service of making those changes. And that's really the showing up. The showing up is like being fully committed to doing whatever it takes to get to where you want to go from where you are. So some of the journal exercises we're going to do are going to start to bring to light this process and where you're at. So one of the journal exercises is really just making a list of, what in your life is giving you energy, is making you feel abundant, or is actually bringing you abundance, in the way that feels good, not just money abundance, but like, energetic abundance, love, connection, safety, abundance of maybe even things, where are your possessions coming from, the possessions especially that you love, where is that creativity coming in from? And then on the other side of that list, you're going to make a list of what things deplete you, what things make you feel like your life is just mundane and routine and boring and sterile almost. And so just a really honest assessment. This is not to judge. This is not to make you feel bad, but just getting kind of honest with yourself in terms of how can you start to integrate, clean up and show up in terms of, if your list of things that deplete you, maybe every person on that list, maybe every person in your life is on that list. How can you start to integrate the changes that are going to have you shift more into the energized state, the abundant state? Another exercise we're going to do is great for the end of the year, and it's super practical for integrating the new you, more of the new you that you're creating. And that's just writing down your goals and your dreams and your visions and getting really clear on that. This isn't just making a list. I want you to sit with this and do what we did, get into this heart coherence and really envision that future version of yourself. And maybe you're already in that future version of yourself. You just want to be a little bit more confident and a little bit more grounded in that. So that's going to be another exercise I'm going to have you do, is go through your goals and dreams and visions for the next month before the end of the year. What things do you really want to tie up before the end of the year and integrate? Saying, I did that in 2021 and moving on to 2022 without that thing hanging on and you bringing it in. So for 1 month, the next 3 months, and the next 6 months. So we're going to do that list this month. And then you're going to look at all those things, maybe the bigger ones that stand out, and just make an honest list of the roadblocks that are in your way. What are the limiting beliefs you have in regards to, say you want to make $5,000 a month in the year of 2022. That's a goal, that's a dream, that's a vision. You can even feel that perhaps. Or maybe you can't. Maybe your new job needs to be creative, whatever it is. So then start to write down those roadblocks. Like, okay, I have a limiting belief because I have a job that I only make this much at, and that means that I'm never going to be able to make $5,000 a month. Great, just writing that down, taking inventory. We're going to do another step to this, which is an emotional check-in. So what emotions start to come up when you look at those roadblocks? Those are often what we're avoiding looking at in the waking up process, is the emotions that come up with that, with the, self-doubt, or say one of your goals is to attract a partner, but you feel like one of your roadblocks is that you aren't happy with your body. So, you're never going to attract that partner until you have that body. And your roadblocks would essentially be that limiting belief and just the self-deprecation that you keep doing. And what emotions does that bring up? It brings up maybe shame. Maybe it brings up, embarrassment or whatever. So we're going to kind of get a list of just where you're at, just like a really honest self-inquiry, self-inventory. And then we're going to start to move into really, really simple integration steps. What is like one thing that you can do to start changing the limiting belief of my body needs to be a certain way before I attract this partner? So I hope you guys get where I'm going with this. I just paused for a second on purpose because I want you to start like really getting the idea of where this contemplation comes in. Contemplation is there's a book called The Art of Contemplation. I couldn't actually find it today, but I was going to give you a couple of I don't know, phrases out of that book. But anyway, it's by Richard Rudd. You can look it up and you can order it on Amazon or Kindle. It's a super short read, but it's so in depth and so important that it'll probably take you a long time to get through. It should, because it's really about pausing. It's pausing and contemplating these things. And this is how we start to break down. This is very practical work. This is how we start to break down the limiting beliefs, the patterns, self-sabotaging patterns, the core wounds. This is how we start to break down these things. And little by little, we begin to integrate the wounded parts back into us to become more healed and whole, to become a new version of ourselves. It's a total lie that we need a certain body to attract a certain kind of man. But that's what needs to be looked at and really considered. And I'm not saying that. I don't want you to beat yourself up over that. If that is one of your limiting beliefs, this is actually the real juice of this, the real paradigm shift in this work is looking at that and loving it all. How can you bring lightness to bringing, becoming aware of your limiting beliefs? How can you bring love and joy and playfulness to looking at some of these systems that have been running in the background? Like the integration piece is, can you sit with yourself and be with the thoughts of, I hate you, you're stupid, why did you do that? Why did you become, an addict? Why did you make that decision? Why did you stay with that guy? Like, can you just sit with yourself and let that story reel go? Most of us don't. And that's where we're always, what's the word I'm looking for? Evading integration, because we are in resistance so often to just sitting with ourselves and being present with what is and looking at those stories that are running in the background, taking time to go back and rescue those parts of ourselves that we demonized when we went through those traumas and went through those stories. This is not about anyone else at this point. This is about you and your healing process. Integration is only about you. As an adult, it's only about you. It's about taking responsibility for your life. It's about doing the work, showing up, cleaning up, doing no matter what it takes to get there. All right. I'm going to read just a little bit about the integration stuff, the integration workshop that I wrote for the course I'm writing in regards to psychedelics. I mean, same process, same big concepts. Essentially, especially looking back on all of the changes that have transpired, all the shit that has come up for us this year, right? Maybe we've lost people. Maybe we've just been going along doing our normal thing and we're just all of a sudden not finding joy and pleasure in the things that we once used to find joy and pleasure with. Or maybe all of a sudden things are starting to feel a lot more heavy and hard, and we don't know why. or maybe some obvious things happen. Maybe you had to leave a relationship that you were unhappy in, or maybe you lost something that was really important to you, a job or a person. So our shit's up because we're a traumatized society. But becoming aware and becoming really active in the process of integration, doing things in service of healing and changing and bringing these parts back into your whole self by loving them, by seeing them, by acknowledging them, by feeling them, by allowing the emotions to run through your body. That's how we get through this. Okay, that's how we get through this together. So yesterday I was listening to a podcast, and I want to mention this too, because this can be like a daily practice where you start to integrate, especially if you're already aware of the patterns. I'm going to use the exact one that they talked about on the podcast because this is one of my stories, and I can talk about it very easily. But this podcast was all about validation, like searching for validation outside of ourselves. I've been working on this with my coaches and therapists for the last, I don't know, I want to say year, but probably 6 months, using these actual terms like seeking outside validation, right? The codependency, the codependence on anything, on people's validation, on society's validation, on social media followers' validation, on I need to have alcohol in my life validation. Otherwise, it means I'm not as fun or whatever. So anyway, she was talking about this, and she just broke it down into 3 simple steps. It's like you become aware of these stories and become, so you know what the wound is, or the thought pattern that you're trying to change. And so I'm just going to use the example of seeking validation. So I want to break down my pattern of seeking validation from outside, so that, and what do I need to do to integrate the healing of that is I need to learn how to validate myself. So great, I have the awareness of it, but what's the actual work to integrate that? Because it's not like it just goes away overnight, especially if you've had this ingrained in you, perhaps in a karmic way. So when you came to earth, but by literally every single person who was your caretaker for the first 7 years of your life, which is when our ego develops. So it's deep, right? It's deep. The stories are deep. So how do you integrate the change to become someone who is truly validating themselves all of the time and breaks the pattern, breaks the whole cycle of looking for validation on the outside? And when I say this, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't look for validation on the outside, because that's also relevant too. We're social beings. We're actually very dependent on each other. But when it comes to that, we're validating our self-worth, when we're basing our worth on someone else's validation, that's when it becomes an issue. That's when we start to manipulate and do weird things and step away from our truth and don't allow ourselves to be expressed in the world, because we're always trying to micromanage and control and do all these weird things, right, on our external, because we need someone's validation. That's when it becomes a problem. It's not a problem to ask your friend, like, do I look good in this dress? Or, do you think this would be a wise decision of me? That's not talking about that kind of validation. But in this case, like, and I'm going to give you this podcast to listen to if it resonates with you, but it just hit me so hard because, her process of integrating on a daily basis is so simple, but of course it's going to take time. So the process is becoming aware of when we're reaching on an outside source to get validation. Great. Okay, cool. I realized that I'm feeling lonely today, and I am tempted to call my ex, for example. So that would be an example that I'm so grateful to say that that is not a part of my reality anymore. But that was definitely a hook for me. That was keeping this validation story alive, the codependence alive in me. And so the integration is then to catch yourself in that story, right? And choose something else. So honor that. Say, oh, thank you so much for coming up today. I recognize you. I see that you're the lonely part of me. I see that you're the hurt part of me that perhaps didn't get validation when she was little, and so she went seeking it from in all kinds of very creative, interesting ways. It can be like really endearing almost. Like I see you, I acknowledge you. I'm going to sit with you today. So then you just kind of keep going with it. You sit with that part. You maybe talk it out with a friend who's a safe confidant, not someone who's going to judge you and make you feel bad about having this part of you alive, but maybe you get it out into the world so it's not just in you anymore. Here's the really important part about integration is that it has to move. Anything that is stuck and not essentially integrated into our wholeness, so our trauma parts that are stuck, stagnant energy, these belief systems that are woven into every cell of our body, it's in your body. It's in your body. So you have to move. Another part of this process is moving energy. We don't get to just think of something and then change it without actually moving it, right? Because the thing that we think about, it's in our mental body, it's in our psychological body, it's in our physical body, it's in our emotional body, it's in our spiritual body. Who knows where it came from any past life stuff that we're carrying around, like I said, and it's most likely been repeated and reflected to us for our entire life. So I'm 38, so 38 years of me having a story of I need to seek validation from external sources. That's a lot of unwinding to do. And that means it's very deep in my body. That means that a lot of movement needs to happen to move this energy. So that's a very important part of this process. And I don't want you to think, well, this can definitely be, I can say for one, and I'm blessed because I do have a very healthy body and I can a free movement, right? So I can definitely say that exercise is a huge part of my daily integration practice. Always continuously moving energy. Always continuously moving energy. So exercise, great. If you're not an exerciser, you can do just simple movements, okay? Bring your body into it with the intention of, I see you, old thought pattern. Thank you for showing up today. I'm going to dance you out. Oops, something just popped in my neck. So that means something shifted. And I'm just going to invite you to move in a different way. Maybe you move to a different part of my body today. That's fine. Maybe you move out and I'm just going to give you up to my guides today. Maybe you light a candle and do a ceremony around it. Thank you so much for coming up. I see you. I feel you. I'm sending that energy up to the heavens. Maybe you get in touch with those emotions. That's a blessing when you can get in touch with those emotions and just feel them, right? Allow them to express. There's some cathartic exercises. There's some somatic exercises in the portal. You can go back. I don't know exactly what months they're in, but they're there. Look for somatic experiencing. Look for the catharsis workshop that we did. Do that. Move energy, breath work. Anyway, anything that you can do in service of actually like moving, like shaking for 5 minutes a day, you guys, this will help you start to integrate so much more of what you are envisioning for yourself and your life and your relationships and the world and everything. We are so stagnant. We're so stuck. So this is a huge part of what stuck out to me in this podcast, because not only did I identify the story, but part of her process is like recognizing the thought and then immediately getting into the movement of that. So, another form of movement is writing. You can sit down and start to write about it. Like I said, you can talk to someone, but I would invite you to really practice the art of moving your body. So like I said, if you have restricted movement in your body, this doesn't mean you need to go run a marathon, but it can mean that you just use the parts of your body that are mobile and do some movement. Shake it out of you. Get into action of moving energy, right? Stagnation is when we get depressed and anxious, and when we start to believe that we are incapable of integrating the new versions of ourselves that we're trying to create. Okay, so the movement. And then the third part of what she suggested in this podcast was, I just love this because this is like the showing up. This is the integration of the integration is okay. I caught you, old story. I moved you, old story. You may be totally identified with that. That's fine. If you are, maybe this part won't be as relevant. Don't force yourself to try and believe something that you just aren't ready to believe. But for those of you who are ready to start to write the new story, that's kind of the end of this quick integration process. You catch the thought, you move it, and then you say, well, what am I going to replace that thought with? What example did I use? Okay, so I used the example of having that story of feeling a little bit lonely, a little bit uncomfortable, being alone, starting to feeling the anxiety, the need for the validation come up. Then I think about calling my ex-partner. I catch myself, I distract myself a little bit, honoring that thought, but moving it, not getting stuck on it, not identifying with it. And okay, that shifts something. I still might be feeling lonely. I might be feeling totally clear at this point. But the last part of this is okay, well, what is the new version that would replace that thought? For me, it would be validating. There's a few things that come to mind. This is a fun exercise to do in the moment. For me, man, I would really love to create a container for myself where I can super honor that need for someone else. And because I do want a partner. But in that partner, when I go seeking him, it's going to be because I'm going to him as an already whole, already healed, already validated woman, looking for a healthy man who's also self-validated, who's also very confident in himself, but also very open and loving and whole and healed and craving the woman of his dreams. So we complete each other from this place of wholeness, not from, I need you to validate me and I need you to validate me, and here we are in this tangled mess. So now I can start to think about wow, it feels so good to just having gone through this process. I did not reach out to my ex. I moved that energy. I'm self-validating in this moment because I am a fucking rock star for sitting with my emotions, for continuing to hold those boundaries and not calling and not reaching out, to not go back into those unhealthy patterns, to sitting here in the discomfort or the comfort, having fun, showing myself, proving to myself, really enjoying myself in this space, connecting with people who love and see me in the way that he didn't, that I don't need their validation. I just know that they love me for all the fucked upness that I have and for all the fucking cool shit that I have too. So, and then think about all those people. And then I think, wow, at the end of this process, that's what I'm really desiring and craving, is this healthy partnership that I haven't known before in this way. For, healthy woman meets healthy man, not needing to be validated, just from a place of what kind of pleasure can we experience together? What kind of chemistry can we fall into? What kind of synergy can we have? What kind of passion will come out of that? You know, if I'm not needing you, if I'm not trying to manipulate you, if you're not trying to manipulate me, like you're seeing me in my power. So it's almost like, ooh, integrating more of that power by being seen by this person. And I'm also being of service to this person because I'm seeing them and accepting them and loving them just as they are, because I don't need anything from it. They can stay or they can go. I don't need them to validate anything about me. So that's a real completion process. And that's what we can do over and over and over again. Celebration, that's the celebration. We don't need to only celebrate when we like get the thing we want and desire. We should be celebrating all along the way. We should celebrate the hell out of the fact that you just didn't call that person to be validated. You stopped yourself. You chose to act a different way. You broke the cycle. Right? You might have to do that 50 more times. You might have to do that 100 more times. Who knows? It takes as long as it takes. But celebrate the shit out of the fact that you did not make the call. Right? The celebration is so important. That's a somatic experience too. In one of the 7-step somatic practice that we did, I think it was like month 3. You guys should totally go back and do that. It's such a good integration practice. It's moving energy, specifically going back into a memory, rescuing that part, healing that part, feeling those emotions in your body. And the end of it is always a celebration, because that's the anchoring in of the new identity, of the new feeling state, right? We went from feeling lonely and needy and codependent and a need for validation, old, uncomfortable, comfortable because it's familiar, but not comfortable because it's the biggest expression of ourself. It's still a wounded expression of ourself, to being someone who did not make that call, who just gave yourself the validation that you were seeking without any expected outcome, right? You might not feel good. It's not about necessarily always feeling good, but you at least did not feed into that old pattern. So you're anchoring in a new pattern. You're starting to become a new identity. You're starting to become a transformed person. And you should celebrate the heck out of that. Celebrate that, anchor that in. Celebration is a huge part of the integration process. Huge, huge, huge. Turn on a song, dance to some music. Celebrate with ice cream every once in a while, or chocolate. Don't make that a habit. I'm saying this for myself because I can get into habits of always celebrating with food and alcohol as well. So those aren't necessarily like the healthiest ones. But if you have healed the trauma, the root of those attachments to things like chocolate and alcohol, and it's not going to become a terribly unhealthy habit, then give yourself the opportunity to go celebrate with that. Celebration's huge. Celebration is it's gonna take your integration practice to the whole next level. I promise you that. Celebrate the small wins. We've got to celebrate the whole way through. All right, I could keep going and going and going. I don't know how long I've gone. I think I've been talking for a while. I think that's all I want to say about that. I think you get it. Lose yourself to go find yourself. We've got to lose ourselves. We've got to die. It's not easy. I did want to share this one definition, and this is about psychedelic integration, but it's all the same thing. It can totally be applied to just integrating changes into our lives in terms of making better decisions about habits we have, about people we decide to hang out with, about jobs we apply for, Okay. So this is from Shri Godasi. She's a psychedelic therapist that I follow. And her definition of integration is the real life recreation of the mind, body, and psyche as inspired by an experience involving psychological processing, accommodation, which is like the grounding of the insights, and successful daily application for the purpose of individual and collective well-being and evolution. So it's a little bit heady of a definition, but I like it. It's the real life recreation of who you are, how you think, how all of your bodies are functioning together, how your psyche is wired. It's a recreation of who you are. It's becoming more whole. It's becoming more whole. If you think about the analogy of making a cake, right? You have all of these ingredients that are separate before you get started. So this is essentially what happens to us when we go through traumas, when we go through hard experiences, when we go through life before we start to wake up, right? We have all of these separate pieces. And then, you start to make your beautiful creation of what we're aiming for, this beautiful cake. And you start to bring ingredients in. And as you start to invite these ingredients into the bowl together, when you mix them together, they essentially become one coherent substance, right? They become whole. They don't become, you don't mix them and then they become they stay separate and divided and they don't want to go together, right? You mix them all, they blend cohesively in this synergetic, beautiful, usually aromatic, delicious concoction that will likely have a beautiful color to it as well, and texture and flavor. And that's really my point, is that integration makes us more whole. We're bringing these parts of us in, we're loving them, we're saying, thank you, you've got to be here. I've been missing you, man, without you, vanilla, I would not be this fucking awesome. And without you, chocolate, I would not be this sweet and rich. And we're going to mix it all together and make ourselves whole and healthier. And, maybe that's a bad definition when I'm using a cake, but whole, healthy, healed, happy, beautiful, smelling good, tasting good, looking beautiful, all the things delicious. So, okay, let's go through the cards that I chose to, I wasn't going to give that long of a talk about integration, but like I said, I totally just decided to wing it this time and not write a script and riff on this workshop. And I was just going to give you these cards, which are such a beautiful, like they always are. And I haven't done an oracle reading for a while, but I'm really, really, really back into the oracle. But this is just a beautiful, basically my question was, what can I talk about and offer to this community as a process, a practical process of integration? And this is what came up. So the first card, so this oracle, I just used one oracle. These are from Alana Fairchild, the Earth Warriors Oracle. Beautiful, beautiful deck. So this first card represents what's the most helpful for you to focus on at this time in terms of integration. And the card that came up is honoring your light. So first and foremost, let's take a look at ourselves from a place of how fucking awesome we are, how far we've come, how just everything is perfect now, right? Like everything is perfect now. What's your gratitude list? What do you recognize in yourself that you really, truly love? And sometimes, you guys, I know because I was there, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. But just make a list, either in your mind or take it a step further and journal these. But the first step in this integration process that's going to help us really, truly have momentum and success in our integration of creating these new identities creating transformation, creating change, is honoring the light. It's called Viracocha. And I'll read you just a little bit more. It's 43. Okay. So first and foremost, ground yourself. You can do this, the meditation that we did at the beginning of this workshop, to ground your light, to get into heart coherence. But the more you can do this throughout your day, celebrating your wins, celebrating you just for being you, celebrating your mistakes. We have to make mistakes. We have to fuck up in order to even know that, there's room for change, right? So honoring your light says, you are a light bearer. Your sole purpose is to redress the presence of darkness on this planet through shining the light. You are meant to do this in the ways that feel most uplifting to you. What brings brightness to your spirit? Do those things. Integration is meant to be fun. We're recreating our life in a way that's going to serve our happiness and our joy. So take these questions into account. I'll write them in the journal prompts under this video. What brings brightness to your spirit? Do those things. How can you create a loving legacy to remind others of the light? This can be part of the visioning too, the visioning exercise. Exploring and expressing the light in ways that remind others to seek the light too is a way to fulfill your divine destiny. Your light is powerful. Use it. So beautiful. So that's the first step in this whole process, is first and foremost, honoring you, honoring your process, not in a negative way, not in a self-loathing way, not in a self-judgmental way. That's not to say you should try and push your judgments aside, but recognize them without identifying with them. Recognize them, honoring them, right? But really also remind yourself over and over and over and over again, you came here for a reason. How deeply can you connect with the essence of you? And that is always, always available in the present moment. So honor your light. Take time this month to just stop and honor yourself. Honor the beauty in this world. Look at all of this beauty around me, right? I have these beautiful spheres of quartz. I have these beautiful plants. I have beautiful fake plants on the wall as well. But I have, just honoring like everything about you. Like, I love my hair. I love my skin. I love that I have my body. You might not love everything about it, but honor the fact that you have one. Just really getting more and more comfortable with that everything that you have in the here and now is all you'll ever need. It's perfect just the way it is, while holding space also for the intention to want more. There's nothing wrong with that either. That was also something I learned in the podcast yesterday. I love that. That's really how we grow and evolve, but in a way that's not self-deprecating, in the way that's not always, yearning for more and expecting and waiting and beating ourselves up until we get it. Like, no, you got to recognize that you are the light right now, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you did or have done, or how much money you have, or in what shitty relationship you're in, or, blah, 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 blah. Like, in the here and now, what can you honor about yourself in your light? The second card represents what the deepest soul guidance is to bring you healing now. So what's the deepest soul message that is going to guide you in the way of integration? And this is so funny. So funny, not funny. I love the Oracle. You all know that. I love the Oracle. I used to give Oracle readings. You'll find them in the first 6 or 7 months, and then I just kind of got out of the habit of it. But our soul is telling us that she rests to create. So we must rest in this process. We must give our body rest. especially right now, this month, this is always a part of the integration. Like I gave the example of the Shavasana, right? But really, really stop pushing. Stop pushing. You've got to give your time to rest, your body time to rest. This to me is speaking more on a body level. Like really making sure you make sleep a priority, making sure that you don't start a new project before you end a new one too, like making space for yourself. What things can you tie up before the end of the year so that the projects you start in 2021, you'll be able to bring more energy to? This topic of creating space. Oh my God, I have so much to say about that. And in regards to the ability to integrate more quickly and just more deeply, I guess, deeply and complexly and magically what I want. Like when you start to make space for yourself, maybe that's getting rid of clothes, maybe that's weeding out the people in your life, right? We're going to make those lists. Maybe that's starting to not spend as much time with the people who drain you. Maybe that's really choosing to focus on something like a meditation practice or a breath practice. Maybe that's not going out on the weekend so that you can feel more rested come Monday. So where can you bring more rest and rejuvenation to your life? And let me read a little bit about this card. She's called Hana Buluka. I believe she's an African goddess. She rests to create. Oh, your energy is a precious resource, and there are ways of being that can enhance it, amplify it, and replenish it. So this is where this list is going to come in so handy. Really do a good assessment of what is going on with your energy. Where are you leaking it, not knowing it, right? Where are you consciously leaking it and still giving it away because you think you should or because you think you're obligated to? Really, really consider this exercise of doing this energy assessment so that you can have a clear picture of where to start making changes in your life to integrate you being a more energetic being. Give yourself sufficient rest, and you shall find the way forward more effortless. Oh yeah, that also speaks so highly of, you always have the answers inside, but when we're not slowing down, when we're not listening, when we're not resting enough to hear those answers, well, we just keep not getting the message. So give yourself sufficient rest. Trust that, you'll be able to trust in your intuition much more when you're rested and clear-minded. Explore the lifestyle that grows your inner resources rather than requiring constant exertion and exhaustion to accomplish an endless list of external pursuits. Oh, that's so good. Explore the lifestyle that grows your inner resources. It all comes from within. You guys, we're going to have to I'm going to tell you again from personal experience and from that of working with clients. It takes a long time sometimes, not all the time, but most of the time, it takes a lot of inner work before we start to see the external results of that. Like the big results anyway. We get small wins along the way, and that's really why it's so important to celebrate, because we don't always see how much progress we're making when we're making a shitload of progress. But it starts on the inside. A lot of this stuff happens on the inside before we get to see the fruits of our labor. So, explore the lifestyle that grows your inner resources. Your job situation might not change for a while. Your relationship situation might not even change for a while, but you can certainly do the inner work to start healing yourself, to start being of a higher frequency within that relationship, within that job, that when it's time to finally make the step, the big leap to, when you have all your inner resources in place and strong and sturdy and courageous and brave and ready, like that's when it's going to be super effortless. Not super effortless. It's always going to be challenge to make changes. But that's when it's going to be easier, right? Less conflict, less doubting, less internal conflict, more so than anything, to really make those big decisions and make the changes that we strive to create. But it takes doing the inner work to get there. Okay. You need this shift in being now because you are ready to accomplish more. Okay, so surrender to the rest. Surrender to the rest. For this to take place, there needs to be less effort and more wisdom. So bringing in some of that female energy, right? Surrender to the bed, surrender to your spiritual practices, surrender to the visioning, less doing at this moment in time. For this to take place, there needs to be less effort and more wisdom. Trust and value what can be accomplished through rest. I love that. Okay, so this is interesting because this was the card, right? That is like the deeper soul guidance to bring you more of the ability to integrate. And then these next cards that came out, what does my soul want me to know at this time? Just in regards to what this might look like. I think what might come up, this is how I'm interpreting it, what might come up in this act of rest and honoring the restful period. It's the two cards of action and warriorship. So I'm not laughing because it doesn't make sense. It actually makes perfect sense to me. It's really fucking hard to sit with ourselves sometimes. That's what this is telling me. So the first card that comes up is the Spirit of the Warrior. So yeah, internal work. And it doesn't mean you're like sitting in bed all the time resting. It's just stop doing to distract, right? Stay with your process. It doesn't mean you're not actually going to do something. It doesn't mean you're just gonna, like I said, it doesn't mean you're just gonna be like sleeping all the time. But that is hopefully a part of your action plan this month, is to really care for your body and get more rest. But Spirit of the Warrior, this to me speaks of when you get still, when you start to rest, when you start to slow down, when you become more in action of the being versus the doing, and allow your stuff to start to come up. It's going to take the spirit of the warrior. It's going to take that warrior in you to sit with it, to be with it, to feel it, to face it, to heal it. So that was pretty obvious to me what these cards meant. And then another one popped out with this action step as well, which is so beautiful. It's the precious and the rare, the pantera. So I'm going to read to you a little bit more about this, but this is also the precious and the rare, also a very protective card. So this to me speaks about being really, really conscious and protective of your energy. Does that make sense? Just think about that. Like when we sit with ourselves, when we sit in silence, when we start to allow this stuff to come up, sometimes it can come up in a big way. Sometimes grief, if that's what we've been avoiding, will come up, and sometimes we cry for months. I had that experience this year. Sometimes, the anger, that's another personal story of mine. I tell these stories from experience, and you can put them in context in terms of what your own are. But my resistance to the emotion of anger is so deep. It's so subconscious. And boy, when I started to get conscious of it and started to get aware and started to pause and started to rest and allow the anger to come up, that shit was scary. I had to muster up in me the courage to feel it, to let it be ugly sometimes, to, just let it come out. I had been bottling it up for so long that when it came out, sometimes it did not come out in a pretty way. And then I learned how to channel it. And then I learned how to really only, and I'm very much in this process right now, to put myself in situations where I'm not going to be as triggered, so that I can deal with it on my own, and that I can process it on my own, so that I don't create a lot of stuff that I have to clean up moving forward in my integration process of healing my relationship with anger in particular. So that's what this card speaks to me. It says, whoops, that's not the right one. The precious and rare. Our faith and optimism are not meant to make us complacent, but rather to encourage us to believe that our action in the world will have a positive and real effect. There are situations where your voice, your courage, your fearlessness, determination are needed. You will make a difference. Cast helplessness or despair aside and find the fighter within. Fight for that which needs defending with all of your heart. Do not yield. So this, to me, in combination with these cards, in terms of this integration process, like honoring your light, honoring your process, honoring where you're at, finding time to rest and contemplate and go inward and look and see what is wanting to be healed, what is wanting to be integrated, what's needing more time and space and energy right now. And then mustering up the courage to sit with that and be with it, and be very, very decisive. That's not the word. Decisive works too, but being very, very disciplined, selective with what energies you're around. So again, these journal prompts are going to help you decide, who are the safe people in your life that you can talk to about this kind of stuff. Who are the safe people in your life that you even want to let come in? Because if they're constantly triggering you and you're constantly being triggered into doing things that you're ashamed of, that's not going to be integrating a new you. That's going to be feeding that old story, and it's going to be keeping you stuck. So this card speaks to me in terms of being outspoken, maybe not to other people, maybe to other people. Maybe it is that you need to set boundaries, and that's okay. Maybe it is that you need to set some limits and tell some people, certain things that they need to respect in return in regards to you. You don't need to explain yourself. We can talk about how to set boundaries. You can get a hold of me and schedule a one-on-one session. I have a lot of experience with this in the last month. And I can tell you, it feels really fucking good to learn how to set boundaries and stick to them. That creates so much space and so much room for integration. But this is really just shouting out to me, like, you need to be a warrior for your own light. You need to be your own protector. Your own protector of the process that you're in. A lot of people are not going to want to accept you when you start to change and when you start to integrate new things about you. It's going to stir up a lot of people, a lot of shit, and a lot of people. They're going to be reflecting that back to you. So sometimes you just need to do a self-assessment and see where you can keep yourself safe and secure and strong in your rebirthing process, in your integration process. And then the last and final card, which represents the most helpful guidance to secure your best future in this full integration. The most helpful guidance to receive now to secure your best future in this integration process. Okay, cool. So that's such a beautiful card. Nourishment for the soul. So how do you really anchor this in? How do you anchor? I just realized these two cards look very similar. The first one and the second one. Honor the light and nourishment of the soul. Honor the light and nourishment of the soul. So beautiful. Viracocha in Pacha Karmak. I believe these are Quechua words. Okay, so nourishment of the soul. This is how you're really going to anchor in this process which goes so well with resting, so well with standing up for yourself, drawing boundaries. Most of us, we need to draw personal boundaries, maybe external boundaries, but drawing boundaries with ourselves, where we're going to spend our, who we're going to spend our time with, where we're going to, go, what we're going to do, what we're going to expend our energy on, money, time, people. It all counts. And the how of really anchoring this in is going to be nourishing your soul. So this is definitely talking about, I don't even need to read this, but I'm just going to say it. I don't know what the actual definition or what this description is going to say, but nourishing your body. Resting is nourishing your body, but also take into consideration actual nutrition. Nourishment of our body is absolutely nourishing our soul. Okay. So this card reads, you are granted the gifts of fertility, creativity, and earthly abundance to support all needs for nourishing body, mind, and soul, and to live your life fully and be capable of manifesting your divine purpose. This is the gift of integration. This is what we do when we're on the healing path, when we do the work. When we're doing the inner work, when we're on this path, this is what is granted to us, is we continue to get closer and closer and get more in alignment with manifesting our divine purpose. Give yourself permission to be nourished. This includes your body and also providing your heart, your mind, your soul with what they're hungry for. So find and do things that give your life meaning, that make you feel like you have a purpose. That can be super simple things to begin with. It can be so simple. It does not have to be this grandiose thing. It can be putting essential oils that you love on your body every night and just making that an act of love to nourish your body, mind, and soul. This can be spending more time doing something that you love versus, cooking for the whole family maybe one day a week. You choose one night to really honor and love you and your solidarity and your free time. Whatever is within your realm to create space for this self-nourishment. This is self-love. This is self-validation. This is how you really, really, really become the new version of yourself, is by actually being in action of this self-nourishment. When you feed yourself that which truly nourishes you, wisely and generously, you shall become one who can also feed the world that for which it truly hungers. Yes, 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 yes. So, yeah, it talks a little bit about actual nutrition in terms of food and just finding what works for you, listening to your body, listening to your mind, tapping into your soul, listening as if your spirit were a caring and wise parent. I love that. You can go back to the first and second, either the first or second month when we did the heart. I can't remember what it was called. But basically when we learn to listen to our heart and tapping in, sometimes when we don't have the answers, and especially if you don't have the answer in your head or nothing comes to you, like in terms of what nourishes me, like I've been in that place many times where I've been really depressed or really overwhelmed or really stressed out and just kind of in that like, when are things going to change phase. If you don't know, if you can't think of things that actually make you happier, make you feel nourished, or you think you don't have the time to do it, just take the time to sit with yourself, get into that heart coherence space, and begin this dialogue with your heart. Begin to ask your heart what it wants. Heart, what can I do for 5 minutes today? Say you only have 5 minutes. Heart, what can I do for 5 minutes today that is going to bring me nourishment? And listen. The heart often tells us things that don't make sense. I said that a lot of times. The heart often tells us things that don't make sense, that may not be the easiest things, honestly, but when you start to trust your heart And when you start to honor the answers that come from listening to your heart, integration happens almost instantly with those acts of honoring your higher self, your heart, your soul. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it takes practice to learn how to listen to your heart, and that's okay. But like I said, this whole entire year, I'm going to close with this whole entire year, January through December, has really been a path to integration. So there's tools that you can find in almost every month to support your integration process. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't think you're doing it wrong. Practice what works for you and do that, and it might continue to work for you, and it might continue, or you might have to change things along the way. But that 3-step process, waking up, becoming aware, showing up, cleaning up, and then showing up, that's a good 3-step process to remember. And then also the other 3-step process, which is pretty much in alignment with those bigger themes, waking up, cleaning up, showing up. But I just loved how she explained in that podcast yesterday about, becoming aware, really honoring and loving, and bringing to even more awareness by naming it, the old thought pattern or whatever is coming up to be healed and loved and changed. And then choosing to be and do a different way, right? And then celebrating the fact that you didn't act or react in the way that you used to. And that is integration of these limiting beliefs, of these old thought patterns. This is what brings the emotions to the surface to be felt. This is integration happening on a daily basis, situation after situation after situation. So much practice. I love you all so much. Thank you for those of you who have been around for this entire year. This concludes, like I said, 12 months of the portal. It's going to continue into 2022 as the Consciousness Collective, still a monthly membership, and we're going to be exploring different themes. You can check those out on the page on my website under the Consciousness Collective. January is going to be about using psychedelics for consciousness evolution. So it's called the Consciousness Collective. So I'm going to explore these topics and talk a lot about what it really means to become more conscious. We'll have a lot of conversations around that. I'm not going to go too much into that. But anyway, you can look at the themes and kind of think about that. We're going to explore these themes. You're going to be getting the same tools, a meditation, journal prompts to do throughout the month, along with the teaching, the workshop. We're going to have a live breathwork session. And then I'm going to try and do a few more bonuses throughout the year. Probably not every month, but I love the live ceremonies. I love even just getting on group coaching calls, things like that. So I'm going to try and work a few more things in, but those are the baselines that you get with every month: is the workshop, the journal prompts, the meditation, the breathwork session, and then Jess is just in the decision process of whether she's going to continue to do the channelings. You guys can always reach out to Jessica, who is absolutely amazing, lovely sister. I'm so honored to be and have her in my life and have been working with her this whole year. And Andrea, who was a part of the portal, giving the astrology reports in the beginning of the year. It was such an honor to work with you as well. And things just shift and change and grow, and I'm loving the collaborations. I'm loving the way that this community has formed and stuck together, and I'm looking forward to 2022 to seeing how it continues to form. So keep this workshop and the things that stuck out to you in this process and the practices that you bring into your life this month. Keep this process close to you, because like I said, integration is not just something that we do sometimes. It's something that we're doing all the time, especially if we're on this path of consciousness evolution. Things will continue to become, you'll continue to become aware of things. in the way that life presents itself, especially if you put that calling out to the universe. I'm here to wake up. I'm here to remember. I'm here to become of service. I'm here to step more into my soul purpose. Your life will present you with the things that are ready to be healed and integrated. So please share in the comments what you learned, what you're getting out of this workshop or this month, these practices this month. There's the Facebook community that you can go and be a part of as well. I love you so much. I'll see you in the meditation and the journal prompts. And happy December. Also, I'm recording this on the new moon, so happy new moon in Sagittarius. Happy eclipse. I love you so much.